Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Liferia, and today's guest is Maxim Shapiro, a men's action life coach who helps men find direction in a world where many feel lost. He admits that for years he was one of those men living without a rudder, feeling depressed and lacking pride despite thinking he was on the right track. He's here to share how he broke out of that drift to become the hero of his own story and how you can do the same. So, Maxim, it's great to have you on FieldCraft. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, Maxim, thank you very much for showing up. Let's get things started. You admit that for years you lived without direction and lacked pride in yourself, even though you thought you were on the right track. So, can you take us back to that specific season of your life? So, I'd like to know, what did that internal dissonance feel like, knowing deep down you weren't pushing yourself?
Well, it really resulted in my depression. Like, I think that if you know you're not giving your best, that's a really disappointing feeling. And if you just live with that feeling all the time and but you're not doing anything about it. Like, I mean, I wasn't really doing anything about it. I was kind of, if my capacity's up here, I was living down here. And at some level, I knew that was the case. And I was too scared to really break out of that and push myself. But I still told myself that I was giving my best. So I was lying to myself. That's just a really depressing way to live.
Okay, so I'd like to know, Maxim, what was the specific breaking point that made you realize you had to change course?
I think it was a number of things, and it happened over time. As I approached my 40th birthday, I just started feeling more depressed, which I think probably is something that happens to a lot of people. And just kind of more and more in general, I was feeling down about life. So there was kind of like this general sense that I'm not getting it done. I'm not living the life that I could be living, but I didn't know how to go about making the changes that I needed to make. And then a very specific person, this woman that I fell in love with, snapped me out of it and helped me to get on the right track and helped me to see for the first time in my life who I really was and how much it differed from who I thought I was or who I wanted to be and who I was telling myself I was. And it was really shocking. It was like, oh my God, this is how far I've strayed from like the path that I should be on. Like if there's a path over here that's your kind of best self or authentic self, I had gone so far away from it that it was really shocking to see, how far I had drifted from the person that I could be.
Maxim, so you mentioned feeling depressed during that time. So how difficult was it to admit that to yourself, especially as a man, when on the surface things might have looked okay?
It wasn't that difficult to admit that I was depressed because I had lived with depression for a long time. In fact, it was kind of a crutch that I used. The really difficult part was to start to tell myself that I don't need to be depressed, that this isn't my real self. This isn't who I have to be. But in order to not be depressed, I have to start making different choices and I have to start thinking differently. I had gotten into the habit of thinking really negatively about myself and life. And that had been going on for decades. And when you have a habit like that, it's like turning around an aircraft carrier. Like you don't just turn it on a dime, you know, it's a slow and painstaking process. And there were a lot of really critical moments when I could feel the depression coming over me and I had to fight it back like fighting back a tidal wave and say, no, I'm not going to go down this path. I'm going to like, I didn't know, what to do. I just knew where not to go. I knew the feeling of my mind going to a depressed place and I knew, okay, I can't go there. And that was the fight of my life. That was like the most difficult thing I've ever done. That was a huge victory. And I remember, days when I would have like this realization like, oh, you know what? I'm never going to be depressed again. Like after, coming out of that, having been somebody that was always afraid of falling into depression and thinking that I needed help to stay out of that and that was just who I was. That's how I functioned normally to then becoming somebody who was like, yeah, I'm never going to need help with depression again. I don't ever have to take any kind of medication for that. That's never going to be something that stops me again was like an unbelievable realization.
All right, Maxim. So you credit someone very important to you with helping you connect to living fully. So how did you learn to accept that help when you were feeling low on self-worth?
Well, this person in particular really just fought for me differently than anybody else had before. She was really stronger in a lot of ways than anybody I'd ever met. She was more insistent. She was more blunt and honest than anybody I had ever met. And I was also at a period in time when I was ready to hear it. I had never before been ready to hear criticism or truth about myself. I was too sensitive and weak to take it. And I just was at a place where I was tired of living that way. Like I didn't want to continue living in the way that I was living. So I knew it was either start to change or there was nothing good if I didn't. So I was definitely ready for something different. And here came this person who I have no idea why, but she was willing to love me and show me what love was and what life could be. And she really taught me how to live and how to bring out the best qualities in myself. She taught me a lot of things that I had not learned up until that point. So I had really been behind on a lot of development. And in kind of like a short period of time, we we brought current, decades of lacking development emotionally and mentally. And yeah, it was like with a combination of my being ready, of her honesty and love. Like it wasn't just brutal honesty. There was also a lot of tenderness and all that kind of stuff. It was like a perfect storm of what I needed in the moment.
Great. So, Maxim, you talk about becoming the hero of your own story. So, what was the first heroic action you took to reclaim your life from that state of drifting?
Well, I mean, probably the first heroic thing was, letting myself be loved by this woman and, you know, trying to love her back. But like, if I want to look at just really concrete actions, I would say quitting my job in Massachusetts and moving to California, just making the decision to move to California because she was in California and I wanted to be with her. So making that decision and then following through on that decision was probably the first kind of big act in my becoming the hero of my own story. And it was, like I remember making the decision and then as time went by, because between the time that I made the decision and when I actually moved, it was like a year. I couldn't just move all at once. I needed to finish what I was doing for work. There was money involved, all this kind of stuff. So, but I remember then over the succeeding months after making that decision, getting depressed because it was like, oh my God, I've made this decision. Now I have to actually do it. And that, that sent me into depression. So having to deal with all that. But I did follow through and, I think there was nothing that was going to stop me from actually doing it because I knew that for me, it was a life or death situation and I wanted to live. So I would say that. And then, after that, shortly after coming to California, getting off of depression medication altogether, those were kind of the first steps in my becoming my own hero.
All right. So I like to ask, why do you think so many men specifically struggle with this rudderless feeling today? Is it a fear of failure or something else? What would you say it is? What's your thoughts on it?
I think, yeah, to some extent, I guess it's a feeling of or a fear of failure. I think it's a sense of not knowing what they're supposed to be, thinking they have to play some particular role. But the thing is that men are fierce creatures. Like we have a lot of ferocity. We have to feel alive. And in order to
Mm,
feel alive, you need to be in battle. And I don't mean in battle literally. You don't have to be a soldier, but you need to feel like a warrior as a man. That's
mm,
what makes you feel alive. And what makes a man feel like a warrior is that he's doing things that are worthwhile. So, if you have a job that you don't care about, if you are having trouble making ends meet financially, or if you are in a relationship that you're not passionate about because you don't give it the attention that it needs or it deserves. It doesn't have to be all these things. It can be any one of these things. But if there's any aspect of your life that doesn't feel worthwhile, that takes away from your feeling like a warrior. And that, for a man is depressing. So men really need to put a lot of energy into pushing ourselves to be our best and, finding ways to push the envelope for ourselves, be honest with ourselves, grow internally. You need to find help to do this stuff. It's hard to do this stuff by yourself. It's hard to even know where to start. Just since I kind of began this transformation like 9 years ago, there have been a lot of difficult moments, but there hasn't been a single moment that I regretted doing anything that I was doing. Whereas before, for the previous 40 years of my life, like I just remember how hard I wished that I was somebody else. I did not like being myself. I didn't see the value in myself. And, for the last 9 years, no matter what was happening to me, and, I've had some hard times, but I was never depressed about it. I was never disappointed in myself. I always felt alive because I was trying to get the best out of myself.
all right, Maxim. So you are an action life coach. So how does taking action specifically help cure that lack of pride you experienced?
So, coaching, first and foremost, is about action at the end of the day. If you're going to be a successful coach, you have to get your clients to turn thought into action. And generally speaking, turning thought into action is what really makes people successful. The people who are the most successful are the ones who are the best at getting out of their own way and turning thought into action. Uh, Being able to get into action around things that mean something to you is super important. And that's my role as a coach. First of all, to help men get connected to what is important to them. And then you set up steps to get in touch with that, to move towards that. And then the place where a coach can help, or somebody who's in a supporting role, is once you start down the path, you have to keep walking the path. Consistency is everything in life. And if you don't have consistency, you're not going to get where you want to go. We're not perfect. We're going to, for me to get from where I am to where I want to go is not going to be a straight line because I'm not
Mm,
perfect. But as long as I am consistent and I don't quit, I will ultimately get there. I'll get to where I'm meant to go. But in order to do that, I have to not quit. I have to have faith. I have to have a big enough vision to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. I think one of the big realizations I had, because another thing that I did when I moved to California was I started my own business, which I had never done before either. And realization I had early on was the reason most businesses that fail, the reason they fail is because the owners stop trying. Like, there's always a reason. If you ask for somebody who owned a business that failed, they'll always give you a reason why it failed. And that reason is legitimate. Like, people have difficulties in life, but at some point that person had to decide to quit. That, something happened external and they said, okay, well, this means I have to quit. I'm not going to keep trying. They had to
mm,
make that decision, because if you don't make that decision, or if you make the decision to keep going, your business is still alive. It might not be in great shape, but it's still going. And so that was just a really valuable aha moment for me, which I needed, because there were a lot of times when it would have been easy to quit if you looked at the evidence on paper. So this is not working out. I should stop. But it's like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm doing really the only thing that I want to do. There's nothing else that would fulfill me. So having the ability to keep going is just unbelievably important. And a coach can help with that.
all right. So, Maxim, after moving from a place of drifting to a place of action and purpose, so what does being successful truly mean to you now?
Me, it means being able to support myself financially as a business person, and prospering financially means having fun doing what I'm doing it with people that are meaningful to me. I'm fortunate to have great clients, both in my coaching business and my real estate business as well. And I've had bad clients. I've had bad clients on both fronts. You go through that, and then you appreciate having good clients, having good people in your life, having love in your life, just having community, having friends, just having a full life, kind of having the life that I always dreamed of and maybe didn't believe for a long time that I could have. I see myself building that life today, and it's very rewarding.
Great. So, Maxim, for our listeners who want to connect with you or learn more about your coaching style, so where is the best place for them to go?
Best place to go is my website, forwardmotioncoach.ing. You can also find me on my YouTube channel at Maxim Shapiro. The name of the YouTube channel is Forward Motion, but at Forward Motion was taken, I believe. So at Maxim Shapiro. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Soon I'll be on Instagram. So I'm on all of the social media platforms, and that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Great. Maxim, this has been a powerful conversation, and I'm indeed honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.